With a drone near a city train, today the enemy attacked an electric train in the Dnipropetrovsk region. One man was killed. He died in the ambulance. Another 9 people were injured, including 2 children, a 10-year-old girl and a young man, 17 years old. 5 victims remain in the hospital. The transport infrastructure in the city of Apostolov, Kryvyi Rih district, has been under enemy attack since nightfall. Explosions have been heard throughout the entire day. And in Kharkiv, an enemy drone struck a residential apartment building. The drone hit the balcony of one of the apartments. There are casualties. Medical personnel provided assistance to 2 children and an 80-year-old woman. The Russians wounded 4 civilians in Zaporizhia. Among them were 2 children. They launched aerial bombs at Komishuvaka, destroyed a house, and with the debris, damaged neighboring homes. 2 girls aged 9 and 15 were injured. And in Orikhiv, the occupiers attacked a civilian car with an FPV drone and wounded the driver. They also directed drones at Zaporizhia. All of them were shot down by air defense forces. Under the gunfire of the invaders of Donetsk region, the enemy killed 2 townspeople in Kramatorsk. Another died as a result of Russian bombing, Oleksievo-Drushkivka. The occupiers also dropped 5 aerial bombs on Drushkivka. There are at least 4 injured. In Sloviansk and Kramatorsk, apartment buildings, a car service station, a municipal enterprise, and a boiler house came under drone strikes. 3 months of battle for electricity. The air forces of Ukraine have published statistics on enemy attacks over the winter. During this time, our defenders repelled 14 massive combined Russian attacks, and it was one of the toughest tests for Ukraine's air defense system. Yes, just in December and January alone, the occupiers carried out 7 massive strikes using missiles and various types of drones. In particular, they launched a medium-range ballistic missile at the Lviv region and used Zircon missiles. Ukrainians endured 7 more large-scale strikes in February. However, their intensity doubled compared to the previous ones. The peak was an attack when the enemy launched 71 missiles at once, and later 420 drones were also used in a single strike. In total, over the course of 3 months, the aggressor launched more than 700 missiles of various types. And each time, with such combined strikes, the Russians tried to overload our air defense system and deplete our available resources. Despite these challenges, the Ukrainian sky held firm, the Air Force emphasizes. In Ukraine, it is now permitted to evacuate children from dangerous areas, even without the consent of their parents. The corresponding law has already been signed by President Zelensky. Therefore, since a child's right to life is paramount, military administrations can now make decisions about the mandatory evacuation of minors to safe regions for protection from shelling. The document specifies exactly how they will be evacuated from settlements located in areas of active hostilities. It also outlines the conditions for accommodating and providing for evacuees, as well as specific rules for the protection of children under such circumstances. If parents refuse to accompany them, minors are evacuated without them. In that case, relatives will have 6 months to submit an application for the child's return, provided they are living in a safe area. If they do not do this, the Guardianship and Custody Authority will apply to the court for the termination of parental rights. According to the Donetsk Regional Military Administration, as of the beginning of February, in the settlements of the region where forced evacuation is being carried out, there are 324 families raising 413 children. A new round of trilateral negotiations involving Ukraine, the US, and Russia will likely take place in Turkey. This was reported by Bloomberg News Agency, and previously President Zelensky. And at an online briefing, he stated that he does not rule out the possibility that this country or Switzerland could host the meeting. Initially, it was planned that the negotiations would take place from March 5th to 6th in Abu Dhabi, and so far, no one has officially cancelled this. However, due to the hostilities in the Middle East, in particular the shelling of the capital of the United Arab Emirates, the Ukrainian side cannot currently confirm that the meeting will take place. The Ukrainian president also noted that if the hostilities in the Persian Gulf are prolonged and intense, this could affect military aid to Ukraine, particularly the availability of air defense systems and missiles for them. Currently, the issue of arms supplies, including the scarce Patriot interceptor missiles, is under constant supervision by the Ukrainian leadership. The president added that he is personally working to ensure that arms tranches are delivered from European partners.
So far, there have been no such signals from the Americans or the Europeans. Everyone understands that for us, this is our life, the relevant weaponry. For now, the program is working, and I am working to ensure that there are tranches from our European partners. So far, everything is proceeding as it has been.
The United States hasn't even seriously started in Iran yet. President Donald Trump stated this and noted that a major attack on Tehran is coming soon. And while the US and Israel continue their operation against the Iranian regime, Tehran continues to attack American military bases, other countries, and neighboring states. Another country has started helping the Iranian Ayatollahs, and it's not Russia. Meanwhile, Ukraine is being asked to share its unique experience in shooting down Iranian Shaheds. And Kyiv is ready to help those who helped us, says President Zelensky. How might the Kremlin use the events in the Middle East? And what did Moscow promise in response to a call from Tehran? TSN correspondent Katerina Fedorchenko will tell you more in detail.
How long will the operation against Iran last? The US president believes that joint attacks with Israel can continue for another 4 weeks, and that his country has enough ammunition reserves to maintain the intensity of the strikes. Donald Trump stated in an interview the day before that he believes America has already exceeded its objectives since it eliminated not only the supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei, but also dozens of officials from the Iranian leadership. At the same time, it is currently known that at least 3 American soldiers have been killed. Trump expressed his condolences to their families and emphasized the number of casualties. The number of casualties among his fellow citizens may increase. And he addressed the Iranians.
Once again, I urge the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the Iranian army, and the police, lay down your arms and receive full immunity or face inevitable death. It will be a relentless death. It will not be pleasant. I call on all Iranian patriots who long for freedom to seize this moment, to be brave, courageous, heroic, and to take back your country. America is with you.
Tehran has refused to negotiate with the United States. In response to the death of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei, the Iranian authorities have declared a holy war against America and its allies. So they continue to bomb Israel and have struck Bahrain, where an American base is located. Iranian military forces also attacked an oil refinery in Saudi Arabia. It ceased operations. At the same time, an ally of the Iranian regime, the Lebanese movement Hezbollah, opened a second front and launched strikes on Israeli territory. In response, Israel began an offensive operation in Lebanon. Meanwhile, an Iranian drone reached a British base in Cyprus for the first time. However, it did not cause significant damage. London offered to provide its military bases to the US for strikes against Iran and requested Ukraine to share its experience in countering Shaheds.
The basis of our decision is the collective self-defense of long-standing friends and allies and the protection of British lives. We will also involve experts from Ukraine, together with our own specialists, to help our partners in the Persian Gulf shoot down Iranian drones that are attacking them.
Kyiv is ready to help partners who have supported our country, says President Zelensky. He reminded that the Iranian regime itself chose to be an accomplice to Putin and supplied him with Shaheds and technology. Now we can share our experience on how to counter this.
Even in Gulf countries, which have higher quality air defense systems than those our partners have provided us so far and have a greater number of systems, they still do not intercept all ballistic missiles. There are also Shaheds that the air defense in the region has not stopped. Everyone now sees that our experience in defense is, in many ways, irreplaceable. We are ready to share this experience, ready to help those nations that helped us, Ukraine, this winter and throughout this war.
Putin's friend, the Iranian Khamenei, and before him, the no less Kremlin-friendly Venezuelan Maduro and the Syrian Assad, a domino of toppled dictators. The process of removing dictators must continue, say officials at the Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The head of the ministry, Andriy Sybiha, emphasizes that Russia is not a reliable ally even for those who heavily depend on it. This is noted by Western media. According to Politico, in response to a concerned call from Tehran, Russia's chief diplomat on Saturday replied with a promise of verbal support. From Tehran, last year Moscow signed a strategic partnership agreement, which, however, does not provide for direct military support to its ally. This was quickly recalled in Moscow. However, even last year, when the US bombed Iranian nuclear facilities, Russia limited itself only to making statements. The media report on what Moscow plans to do and what benefits it expects to gain from this conflict. Moscow will hope to divert attention from itself by emphasizing the West's and especially the US's inability to adhere to international norms. This will also likely reinforce the Kremlin's hardline stance on Ukraine, which it has consistently portrayed as a defensive move against Western aggression. Another bonus for the Kremlin, according to the politician, is the rise in global oil prices amid the fighting in the Middle East. However, this does not mean automatic profits for Moscow. For now, the financial benefits are only beginning to take shape, while experts are already discussing the political downsides of non-intervention. Igor Semivolos, director of the Center for Middle Eastern Studies, emphasizes that Moscow's lack of support for its Iranian ally has been well noticed in North Korea, China, and the countries of the Global South, whose friendship Russia is betting on. Katerina Fedorchenko, TSN 1+1.
The country's airlines will try to resume flights from the Emirates as early as this evening. Civilian aircraft are operating a limited number of flights to help thousands of tourists leave their country. Flights over the Emirates were halted due to Iranian attacks. As a result, a significant number of tourists are unable to leave the country. Some of them have faced accommodation problems, while others have been provided with temporary shelter. A similar situation has arisen in several other Middle Eastern countries due to the ongoing hostilities. Among those stranded in the UAE, even the Estonian Minister of Defense ended up stranded there. He eventually managed to reach Oman by land. Also stranded in the Emirates, witnessing attacks by Iranian Shaheds, are numerous citizens of the aggressor country. The Russian consulate has issued some interesting instructions for its tourists. It says that if a citizen is an orphan without friends or acquaintances and cannot pay for their stay at a hotel while waiting for a flight, diplomats will place them with volunteers. In Spartan conditions, France is increasing its nuclear arsenal for the first time in decades. This was announced by the country's president. According to Emmanuel Macron, the state will strengthen its deterrence capabilities as the risk of conflicts in the world is increasing. The president of France also emphasized that from now on, Paris will not disclose data on the number of nuclear warheads in its arsenal. Under certain circumstances, Macron emphasized, the deployment of strategic resources will also be possible among allies. And the current rethinking of the nuclear doctrine was developed by Paris together with London. A group of European countries has recently begun discussing the possibility of their own nuclear deterrence. Since confidence in the reliability of the US as an ally has been shaken, and France is the only EU country that possesses nuclear weapons, it's not schadenfreude, but rather salvation through humor. Good evening, we are from the Emirates, and this is the dog Shaitan. The Ukrainian internet exploded with countless memes in which parallels are being drawn between the situation in the Middle East and the war in our country. Ukrainians remember well how Russia's full-scale invasion began. Everyone recalls their own experience, but thanks to humor, the focus shifts to what the situation in Dubai would be like if Ukrainians lived there. So in the memes, we see familiar symbols of Ukrainian resistance. Patron the dog, the phrase, good evening, we are from Ukraine, the wings and the saying of former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and other cultural references that are understandable to a Ukrainian audience but reimagined in a Dubai style, such as, for example, the schedules. When it comes to power outages, Ukrainians also recalled the legendary Ghost of Kiev, who gained great popularity during the full-scale Russian-Ukrainian war. Ukrainians suggested that Dubai might have its own symbol, the Ghost of Dubai, in the image of a well-known Ukrainian politician. And some people recalled the legendary meme featuring the self-proclaimed president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko. But already in the Dubai context, it's worth noting that there are people online who are outraged by memes related to such sensitive topics as war and shelling. However, the creators of these humorous images explain that this is not mockery, but rather a typical Ukrainian form of defensive reaction, when humor helps to cope with stress. So, what do you think about the conflict that is now escalating in the Middle East? Be sure to share your thoughts in the comments to this broadcast on YouTube. And of course, give us a like and subscribe to the channel while I continue with the TSN broadcast. Precise and timely attack on Russia's fuel infrastructure. And this happened precisely when, against the backdrop of events in Iran, oil prices around the world surged by 15 to 20%. Shares of Russian companies went up, and Moscow was planning to make a good profit and take advantage of the situation. The General Staff confirmed a drone strike on the Sheskari's oil terminal. Residents of Novorossiysk reported a large number of explosions on the night of March 2nd. This is a large maritime complex for receiving, storing, and shipping oil and petroleum products onto tankers. And it is one of the largest and most strategically important oil terminals in Russia. It plays a key role in the operation of the Novorossiysk seaport and the entire export infrastructure of the country's south. The extent of the damage is still being determined. This is not the first strike on this oil terminal. Last November, drones attacked the port of Novorossiysk. After the strike, a large fire broke out at the oil terminal. A 16-year-old teenager suspected of preparing a terrorist attack was detained in Kharkiv. According to law enforcement, the young man from Odessa was looking for easy money on Telegram and agreed to plant a homemade bomb in an apartment for payment of a multi-story building. Following the instructions of his handlers, he came to Kharkiv, retrieved the components of the explosive device from a stash, and checked into a hotel where he was supposed to prepare the terrorist attack. According to the SBU, the Russians planned to call 102 and summon patrol officers to the apartment where the explosive had been planted. It was, as usual, supposed to be detonated remotely. The teenager who took on the Russians' assignment was caught red-handed. In the hotel room, while he was attaching the detonator, he was already informed that he was suspected of preparing a terrorist attack, and for this he faces 12 years in prison with confiscation of property. Carpets made of money and nearly 100 pieces of jewelry. In Vinnytsia, 2 female doctors were detained. According to law enforcement, they were issuing fake disability certificates for money. A family doctor from a private clinic would find clients, while her friend, the head of a city hospital department, forged hospitalization documents. Based on these, clients were issued documents with a fake diagnosis. For arranging a second-degree disability, the medical workers charged $4,600 per person. Law enforcement is currently determining how many men of conscription age managed to use this scheme to avoid mobilization. During searches, nearly 1 million hryvnias were found at the family doctor's place. In cash, over $200,000, as well as euros and valuable jewelry. He returned from captivity, but all the payments for the years spent there disappeared. A 22-year-old serviceman, Dimitro filed a lawsuit against his mother, who refused to return more than 4 million hryvnias to him, which she received from the state while her son was in Russian captivity. And then she even removed him from the house registration. The prosecutor's office has already taken an interest in this story. Investigators have opened a case. What is the mother's position and what do lawyers and the serviceman advise? To protect yourself in similar situations, TSN correspondent Anna Makno will explain further.
Dimitro shows TSN the house where he grew up and tells how his family home stopped being a refuge for him and his relatives stopped being his support. All right, we've arrived at your house. Dimitro, 22, signed a contract with the armed forces of Ukraine a few months before the full-scale invasion. In the first days, he defended Zhytomyr region, then Mykolaiv region and Donetsk region. That's how it was until June.
He was captured on June 6, 2022, in Svetohirsk, Donetsk region.
A long 35 months in captivity.
There was horrific torture, constant beatings and electric shocks happening every single day. They even set dogs on us to bite us. They froze us. We were left almost naked there in the dead of winter, and we were given almost nothing to eat.
He says that what helped him survive were thoughts about returning home.
I hoped that I would return soon and continue with my own plans.
And then May 2025, a prisoner exchange. Dimitro is coming back. During rehabilitation, he found out from the brigade that while he was in captivity, the state was making payments and giving them to his mother. He started asking his mother and sister where the money was. That's about 4 million hryvnias.
They said, we'll sort everything out. They said they'd give me the house, even though I said, well, I wouldn't even use that house at all.
But soon he was even more shocked.
A week or two later, I get a notification in DIA saying that I've been deregistered from my place of residence. And the message before that was, you don't owe anyone anything, and no one owes you anything.
He claims he tried to come to an understanding with his relatives.
I only heard aggression. They blame me more for this situation, like, you're a bad son, can't you give us money? I would have given it to them, that's all. But it should be done with reason, not just presented as a fact that I have to do it.
So he decided to reclaim the payments through the court. His lawyer says that similar situations happen because of imperfect legislation.
Apparently, the logic of the state was that servicemen have families who are dependent on them for support. But here, the legislators and policymakers did not sufficiently consider the fact that relationships within these families can be extremely complex and varied.
Until recently, all funds were transferred to the close relatives of servicemen who had been taken prisoner, or were considered missing in action. But starting from February 1st, 2025, changes have come into effect. A serviceman can now write a personal directive specifying who will receive what percentage, who can receive the payments.
If there is no personal directive, then now, by law, 50% of the total amount, which includes monetary allowance, additional rewards, and so on, 50% remains on, let's call it a conditional deposit account of the serviceman.
This secures part of the serviceman's finances. But Dimitro's lawyer is convinced that this is also not a complete solution to such situations.
The other 50%, that's not a small amount either. And exactly how all of this money will be used by each of those individual family members. I don't think it will significantly reduce the total number of cases reported. Similar to Dimitro's case, each situation needs to be approached individually.
Dimitro's fellow villagers are unpleasantly surprised by the misunderstanding between him and his mother.
The family was described as normal. They were never registered anywhere or on any lists. The mother has been abroad for several years already because she is working there. Tima was still in school when she left to work abroad.
Miss Ina, the administrator of the local administrative services center, says that money matters are their personal business. But when it comes to the house?
As for the house, the mother is indeed the sole owner and had the right to remove him from the registration. This
is also confirmed by the prosecutor's office. However, here, on the contrary, they became interested in the financial aspect and opened a criminal case.
On the grounds of fraudulent appropriation of funds belonging to the victim in especially large amounts. The estimated amount involved is about 4 million hryvnias.
The money was spent on house repairs and medical treatment, explains Dimitro's mother in a letter she sent to TSN. After several days when we tried to call her and her sister, she supposedly thought her son would live in the house, but he decided to leave, and in her despair she deregistered him.
If my son has made this decision, of course I will return this money. Maybe I will at least borrow part of the money. I really hope that our family conflict will still be resolved.
And this is both to get the money back and to show the situation that exists in our country. Because there are a lot of such situations. Many people don't want to deal with it well, they just accept it.
Now Dimitro has returned to defend Ukraine and now wants to create a public organization that would help servicemen in similar situations.
We have not encountered any judicial practice as such. Specifically, if we are talking about the return of funds by parents of servicemen who were in captivity. Therefore, this will be a kind of precedent.
The court hearing is already scheduled for March 20th. Anna Maknu, Alexander Kovtunets, Rivne region, TSN 1+1.
He dressed up as a grandmother to slip across the border. In the Odessa region, border guards from the Mayil detachment stopped a man of conscription age who was trying to leave for Moldova. During passport control, the border guard's attention was drawn to a strange female passenger in the car. According to the passport, she was 72 years old, her face was tightly wrapped in a headscarf, and she remained silent the entire time. When questioned by the border guards, the driver answered for her, claiming she was supposedly an acquaintance. The draft dodger stuck to his role until the very end and diligently tried to pretend to be an old lady. The headscarf?
Take it off. I am very sorry, but I am currently unable to verify the face properly with the current view, so I must apologize for the inconvenience. Could you please remove the scarf completely so I can see clearly? That is very good. Thank you for cooperating. Now that I can see, I need to ask, is this person a woman? A woman? We are detaining this woman. A tractor driver. People from various professions are now mastering another skill to become aces at piloting. Fighters of the 128th Heavy Mechanized Brigade are undergoing training at the drone school, working on simulators and flying at training grounds. TSN correspondent Daria Nazarova witnessed it.
We gather information and then sooner or later the child gets involved.
Behind these vivid shots, drone operators do painstaking work. The path to destroying the enemy begins with training on a simulator like this.
At first it was very difficult. Unusual because it has its own specifics, very peculiar. But gradually, by the third week, I
had completed almost all the courses. The professor didn't get his call sign for nothing. In peacetime, he was a scientist at the Historical Museum. But since 22, he's been an infantryman in the armed forces. At first, he destroyed Russians with an anti-tank grenade launcher. Now they're mastering the weapon that changed the course of the war, FPV drones. At the school, he says, they teach not only how to fly and thoroughly understand the construction of drones, and not just those used by Ukrainian forces.
This is actually a captured drone that was flying toward our dugout, but didn't quite make it. Its warhead fell off, and it just landed next to our dugout. So we took it. If you look closely, you can see a specific unit logo right here, which indicates that these men are paratroopers who have come from Novorossiysk. As we can see, the drone is made out of sticks and mud. In other words, it's as simple as it gets.
The fighter with the call sign Neptune is making his first flights. A former TV technician, he dreams of becoming a top-notch drone operator, so he takes his training very seriously.
Here, you have to sit down and be like a Formula One pilot. One wrong move to the left or right, and what happens to you? But you are a shining star, and you are soaring through the air. Your natural instincts constantly help you to evolve into a much better version of yourself.
Before his first combat missions, the man dreams of visiting his family.
I want to see them. Even
For
a little while. Either go visit or soon I'll have to fly out. If only they made a drone you could sit in and be in Kyiv in no time.
Alongside a scientist and a TV presenter, a tractor driver from Chernihiv region with the call sign Mega also took a virtual seat at the drone school. He compares piloting a deadly bird to driving a big machine.
There are joysticks on the tractor too, it's all the same. It's also the control system of a new tractor. That's it, it's new, it also connects to this.
And after their first flights on simulators, the fighters are met by real drones at the training grounds. This is the training of future Mavic pilots, reconnaissance operators. It's time to bypass electronic warfare systems and fly in bad weather.
Heavy rainfall, strong gusts of wind, and very poor visibility. You don't feel any of that on the simulator. You just fly and control the joystick. The difference is enormous.
The war has already disrupted the usual life of the fighter with the call sign Electric twice. He is originally from Donetsk. At the start of the war, he moved to Mirnohrad, then relocated his family to Dnipro and went to the front himself. Revenge for the destroyed cities. For him, it's a matter of honor.
Not just for Donetsk, but for many other cities that have been destroyed where only the land remains.
After training, all the fighters will defend Zaporizhzhia as part of the Unmanned Systems Battalion of the 128th Brigade Wildfield. They will destroy enemy equipment and drive the enemy out of Ukrainian land. The soldiers have launched a fundraiser for the battalion's needs because more drones mean more destroyed enemies.